Ready? Play.
Welcome back to another episode of Painting Lines. Last week we wrapped up the Australian Open, and this week we'll be breaking down Montpellier. All right, we got FAA winning his seventh career title and his second title this year, and we're only a month into 2025. He started the year ranked at 29, and now he's sitting at 23. So, Aiden, is this the year that we see FAA back in the top 10? Because he's been struggling, and I feel like this could be the resurgence.
I 100% it's a positive sign. Like no discounting the fact that he has won two titles this year. He's the only person to have won two titles this year. It is only February 2nd, but still an accomplishment there. But I really want to see it's kind of a wait and see moment. Like, let's see how he does when we move back to outdoor hard courts. How is he going to do once we start going on to clay and grass? It's so difficult to make a statement this early on in the year, especially because we've seen him succeed mainly on indoor hard courts before. And so this, while it's good for him, it doesn't necessarily tell us, oh, how's he going to do in the remainder of the year. And I think this is kind of another thing that we got spoiled in during the Big Four era, where we saw the same guys dominate all throughout the year. Every surface, it didn't matter. You had Fed, Djokovic, Nadal, and Murray all doing really well in every tournament. And it brings up a point to me, which is that prior to the big three guys winning career Grand Slams, Federer, Djokovic, and Nadal, only five guys had won a career slam. And that kind of brings up why it was such a massive deal when Agassi did it, is because, yeah, it wasn't expected that guys could dominate on every single surface. Now we kind of expect it from the top guys. Like, they went into this Australian Open and they were like, okay, is Alcaraz going to complete that career Grand Slam? It's an expectation rather than like a shock when someone's able to do it.
Yeah, definitely. So what it sounds like is you're not going to be extremely bullish on him yet because, he's primarily a an indoor hard specialist, if you will. Like speaking of, I think this was his 53rd win on indoor hard in the last like couple years, few years. But all in all, it's been, a good start for someone who's been struggling because I don't think he's been in the top 10 since 2023. And, being so young, I think he's less than 25. This would be big for him to kind of get back to where he was a couple years ago.
100%. That'd definitely be a positive step.
Yeah. Will he do it though? All right, let's get into the first round here. There was nothing really crazy that happened. No big stars in this tournament. We had Rublev and FAA at 1 and 2. Rublev cruised on into the second round with a first round bye. And then
Okay.
yeah, exactly. Cruised in there. Stan the man, 39 years old. That guy's still kicking out there, but he had a loss to Kazo. And then Eubanks was out there too. I feel like it's been a while since I've seen him play a match, and he also got a first round win too against Kachmazov. And then your guy Gasquet, he got the dub out there against Manarino. Nice little bet of the week.
Yeah, I'm happy that I nailed the bet, but it feels bad for Manarino just to continue to fall, I guess, since his 2024 high, I think. Um, but these are just weird tournaments, I feel like. You look at right before and right after the Australian Open, there's kind of this weird dead period where there's no really big tournaments. And I talked about this last year, but I feel like they need to take better advantage of these times to kind of spur viewership. I think this year it is doing a little bit better because it feels like Rotterdam has a bunch of big names and that Dallas also has like the remainder of most of the guys in the top. But it does kind of make sense to an extent because it's like, okay, you have the Australian Open, and right after, most of the guys playing in these tournaments are guys that either lost super early or didn't play in the Australian Open. So it kind of makes sense that it wouldn't always be the biggest names.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty funny. We had Sinner. He actually won this tournament back in 2023, but clearly he's not here now. I feel like he outgrew this tournament, and it's kind of beneath him.
Well, I think it kind of goes back to what I was just saying. Like the
Hmm.
Australian Open win, when you win the Australian Open, you don't immediately play a tournament the next week. You get like a couple weeks off usually. And actually, last year he played in Rotterdam after winning the Australian Open, I'm pretty sure. But
Wow.
he didn't play in this tournament, obviously, because it's like you don't go final and then you're like, okay, I got to be back on it in 2 days.
Yeah, hopefully you got to enjoy that Australian Open win a bit. So let's hop into the second round. Touch back on Rublev. He took out Eubanks in 2 sets, and this was his first win of 2025. And then the defending champ, Bublik, he got a dub against Kepfer, and he actually won this tournament back in 2022. So clearly he plays pretty well here in Montpellier.
Yeah, so he has a couple of wins here,
Yeah,
2022
yeah,
and
yeah.
last year.
Yeah, 2022 and then Sinner 2023, then last year, and then obviously not this year. But
Yeah, it's weird with Bublik because like you really have no idea where his level is. It
yeah, I
feels like
know.
he's just playing like a mid 50s player, and then you're like, wait, can he actually compete with the top guy? I don't know.
Yeah, and that's a good segue into the quarters here because Bublik had a pretty bad loss against Kova, 6-3, 6-2. That was pretty surprising.
Yeah, I think the shocking part here is just that it was so one sided, like it wasn't a super close match, especially because we know Bublik can have a big serve, and I feel like it can be kind of difficult to break a massive serve indoor, and the fact that Kova was able to do it and beat him pretty handedly is pretty shocking.
Yeah, but all in all, Kaboli was actually the only one of the top four not to make it into the quarters. So Rublev, FAA, and Bublik, they made it. Rublev and FAA advanced, and then into the semis now. Kova, I feel like Bublik was the biggest win of his career then, and then he just played Rublev for his new biggest win of of his career. Let's talk about Rublev here. So he's been struggling. He made it to the semis. I feel like this is a pretty good tournament for you. Like, what do you think? Is this successful? Should he be, patting himself on the back here for making the semis?
I gotta say no. I think he comes into this tournament a terrible Australian Open, obviously first round loss. He was a heavy favorite to win. Uh, there was no other player in the top 20 in this tournament. The second best guy, like you said at the beginning, was FAA, the 2 seed, and he was outside the top 25 before the beginning of this tournament.
Hmm.
So I just feel like he's such a massive favorite to win. Anything other than a win in this tournament is a failure. Maybe a final loss against FAA wouldn't have been that bad because it'd be like, okay, it was the second best guy in the tournament that you lost to, and you made the final. But really, a loss to Kovacevic, it's like he, while you want to give him his credit for playing well, obviously he came in with confidence after beating Bublik and comes in here, beats Rublev. But still, you would think that Rublev would have a hold of this. And it just shows his classic underperformance, I guess, that he wasn't able to win this tournament.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I just think like I've referenced this before, kind of stacking little wins. Like because he's been struggling so much, I feel like this might be a good confidence booster for him. Yeah, sure, he should have won the tournament statistically. He was by far the best player there, but for someone who's struggling, he may not be playing like his ranking. So he's realistically playing like someone who's ranked in the 50s. So I think for him, this was kind of a step in the right direction. Like stack your little wins and then on to the next tournament.
Yeah.
And then FAA took out De Jong to make it to the finals. All right, let's hop into the finals here. This was also my match of the week, so I'm gonna just like fully go into it. I watched this match through and through. I even had to take about an hour break midway through to do something, but I paused the match and then came back to it. And it was so tense, Aiden. I was so tempted to check the score
Yeah,
because I couldn't take it.
that's always a tough one. Like you pause it an event and then you hear your phone go like dun dun and you're like, okay, that's clearly the score getting sent to me through ESPN, but I'm not gonna check that because I don't want to know. I want to watch it live or watch it
Exactly.
delayed at least.
Yeah, yeah, delayed live. It just makes it so much better. But I was worried that when I pressed play again, you know how sometimes it just skips to where it is live.
Oh yeah,
So luckily it didn't do that. Picked up where it was. And FAA absolutely dominated Kovacevic in the first set, and it was actually pretty funny because the crowd. I felt like because Felix Auger Aliassime, he has some French connection to him. Like look at his last name. And the crowd was just heavily against him, heavily for Kova. I feel like because they wanted to see a longer match here. And the second set went into an absolutely tense tiebreaker. FAA actually had two championship points that he couldn't convert them. got so tense there at the end that he even double faulted to go down 7-8, and then Kovacevic closed out the set, sent it to a decider. Third set, back and forth, just like physical tennis. That ended up going to a tiebreaker as well. Felix went up 3-0 and then gave back the two mini breaks right away. So you thought like, okay, this is going to go toe to toe again. But FAA eventually just broke away and closed it out from there, like collapsed on the ground. He even said that this was probably one of his most exciting titles yet. And here's something that I wanted to discuss that I noticed while watching the match. I felt like there were certain points that came in the match that I like to call statement points. Like, for example, Kova was down love 40 in a game and he came out there, hit an ace. And then another one, FAA got passed on a nasty one-handed backhand from Kova, like got the crowd going. FAA came out, hit an ace next point, and he didn't hit many aces. Neither of them did. So like these big points, I feel like say something. And then another one, for example, FAA went down love 30 at 4-5 in the third set, and he started off with a strong serve, won that point, and then won the next three, closed out that game. And then Felix went down a break point, 5-5 in the third. Didn't hit an ace, but hit a very strong serve that wasn't returnable. Just like clutch serving right here. And then lastly, to close out the match, he hit an ace. And like I just want to reiterate, neither of these guys really served that many aces during the match. So these all came at very important parts of the match.
Yeah. I mean, I think to be honest, that kind of is part of what makes the men's game interesting compared to the women's game, is that you can have situations like this where someone completely shuts down their opponent's momentum or changes the momentum by just hitting a big serve. It's like you can come into a point and be like, oh, I've just lost the last 3 points. And then it's all on your racket. You come in and all of a sudden you hit three massive serves. They don't have to be aces, but they make it really easy for you. And now the game's back in your favor instead of it being like, I have to grind out 3 points to win this and get back into this game.
Yeah, exactly. I also love the mental component of it too. It's like basically sitting there like, all right, let me reset. Let me put all my energy into this one serve and just like get back to even or get a little step closer. So I like seeing that. And then I also noticed the broadcasters. They had a few quotes that I liked that I just kind of wanted to read off here. One of them came after a very long, intense rally, and he goes, "Oh, and it's FAA who blinks first because FAA lost the point." I thought that was pretty funny. And then in the third set, one of the broadcasters says, "It's not about the tennis at this point. It's who can compose themselves. It's a mental game right now." And that's how it felt. I was at the edge of my seat, just so like nervous for both of them, and I wasn't even playing the match. And then the last quote I just wanted to bring up was over an hour after his previous championship point, here's championship point number three. And that says a lot because FAA had the chance to close out the match twice in the second set. Couldn't get it done. Played over an hour in the third set and then finally had another chance to close it out. So it goes to show the mental part of this, like having to do that after such a long time.
Yeah. You know what's funny about these quotes is I feel like I've heard these in other matches, but I feel like it's all about how and like when the broadcaster uses them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because if a broadcaster uses them in the right moment, it feels really fitting.
Hmm.
And you see them do it correctly, you're like, that's why having a good broadcaster or commentator is beneficial for a match, is because they're able to describe the moment in a way that maybe you weren't thinking about.
Oh yeah, that's a great point. Great point. So the match ended up being 6-2, 6-7, 7-6 FAA. And another thing that the broadcasters were bringing up was shot quality. So like I don't really understand what exactly goes into shot quality. They were saying like power, speed, placement, a couple other variables. But apparently FAA had a 9 on his forehand, whereas Kovacevic only had a 4. And then Kovacevic actually had a better score on his backhand. He was repping more towards an 8, whereas Felix was lower than that. But this is my match of the week. It was just very fun to see a one-hander in the final too, and we saw a lot of one-handed winners, which was kind of awesome. FAA even brought up in his speech that I think that the first time these two played each other was, when they were 12 years old back in Florida at an Orange Bowl tournament. And FAA even said that he reminded him of Federer, like the way he struck his one-hander. So I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah, and in terms of like the shot quality, I feel like that's very much a hard to identify thing as a witness to the match, someone watching. It's hard to be like, oh, he's hitting an 8 on his backhand right now, but it is kind of a thing where at least with like the performance quality or whatever that is statistic, I've seen some of those matches where like, oh, this guy played like a 9.5 out of 10 or whatever. And you're like, looking back at that match, I see why they rated it that way.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder if there's any like subjectivity in it too. But um, all in all, what a week for Kovacevic. Like this, they kept saying this was the week of his life because this was his first ATP final. And funny story here, his father, who I guess like kind of doubles as his manager, forgot to enter him into the main draw like properly. So he had to go through qualifiers to get to where he is. And he kind of joked around and was like, yeah, those two quali matches, who knows if I would be here right now if it wasn't for them. They got me warmed up. But yeah, just super fun to see a guy like this because he's actually older than FAA too, which I didn't realize. But I feel like FA has just been on tour for such a long time, even though he's what, like not even 26. Anyway, when Kovacevic was giving his speech, you know how second place always goes first. So then FAA followed it up, and then Kovacevic went back to the mic and was like, "Hey guys, sorry, this is my first final, and I kind of forgot a lot of things to say. I forgot to thank my team and the tournament director." So I thought that was pretty funny. Definitely give him a break there for not thinking about it right away, and you can kind of hear the nervousness in his voice.
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, great week for him and rounds it out in a funny way, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder if he can follow it up. We shall see.
100%. All righty, you ready to hop into segments here?
Yeah, let's do it.
Hey guys, before we jump in, we have some exciting news. We recently partnered with TruePro. They're a great place to buy strings, grips, and tennis apparel. Use discount code Painting Lines, that's one word, for 20% off store wide. You can find the link in our bio.
All righty, what's new in tennis? What did you see this week?
I saw something chippy and I absolutely loved it. I saw some Davis Cup drama. There was a very, very heated exchange between Arthur Fils and Thiago Seyboth Wild after the match. So they went in for the handshake, and Thiago Seyboth Wild just absolutely dogged Feast. Like went for the handshake, pulled him in, muscled him in, and then just started bitching him out. And then after that, they each went to the bench. Thiago packed up his things, got his bag, and then as he was walking away, Feast was saying more stuff to him. He drops his bag, gets in his face, and the coaches had to actually like pull them apart, kind of separate it up. And this was all because, let me take a step back here. So what happened here was there was a point where it was a drop shot. So Feast was coming in to hit the drop shot, and he pushed it long, but Thiago Seyboth Wild kind of like it almost hit his racket. He had to get out of the way. It didn't touch him, but the umpire called touch, and he's like, "What are you talking about? I didn't touch it. I didn't touch it." And Feast just kind of kept saying, "Hey, it's the ref's decision. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what I think." So people were pissed about that. The coach, Thiago's coach was kept telling the ref, "This is the wrong decision. Like this is the wrong decision. Go back and look." So anyway, people are coming after Feast really hard because they're saying he cheated. They're saying he needs to show more respect. He's always involved in this drama. I even saw a clip that resurfaced of him and Santiago last year, like absolutely cussing out a supervisor. But that's unrelated to this. People are pissed because in the press conference, he said this. I think he didn't touch the ball. It's a fact that goes against him, but I also believe that had the roles been reversed, he wouldn't have awarded me the point. There's no issue between us. We clarified things afterwards. This kind of reminds me a little bit of the Draper FAA incident because half the people thought Draper should have kind of fessed up and replayed the point because they're saying he knew he was wrong, but he kind of left it up to the ref. Here, Feast knowingly, like very blatantly knew that Thiago didn't touch the ball, and that the ref was wrong, but continued to play because he said it was the ref's decision. Now, I'm just here wondering whatever happened to video review because I thought that that was supposed to be a bigger part in tennis. I thought they were bringing it into, at least the slam. So I'm not really sure if this is something that only a few tournaments have, not the others, but I think it needs to be consistent. I think either you have it for all the tournaments or you don't have it at all.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's one of those things where it's hard to introduce it. You have to add probably more cameras all over the court, which is
That's
just
true.
not the easiest thing to do. But yeah, I feel like in this situation, with when you know and it's obvious that they didn't touch it, I feel like that's when you make a comment. I feel like in the Draper situation, it's more it was more ambiguous. Like
Hmm.
it happened so fast. Draper maybe didn't know whether he'd hit the ball or whether it hit the ground, right? Because
Yeah.
sometimes you're like, oh, that definitely hit the ground, and then they got their racket under it. And so, yeah, maybe he knew in that situation. In this one, if you know and it's obvious, it's like, come on, man. I don't get why you would. I know that it's there's a financial aspect, like you're trying to win the match, but it's just I don't really understand how you can just blatantly do that. It just
Mhm.
feels like the bad move. But then again, I also don't like really calling him out on it because it's like in the end, he didn't choose to have the ref make the bad decision.
Yeah, no, it's definitely tricky. I do hear you. I think Draper's was a lot less obvious, but here I feel like if you're Feast, man, just keep your mouth shut. Just be like, I don't know, I didn't see it. Don't go out and say like, yeah, I don't think he touched it,
Yeah, be
because that
like,
just
yeah,
kind of go like double
I knew
down.
that the ref's decision was wrong, but
Yeah, but he wouldn't have given it to me if the roles were reversed. Like I think at that point, just hey, man, I'm not the ref. I didn't make the decision. So
yeah.
anyway, what about you? What did you see this week?
Mine, nothing crazy. I just was looking at the Rotterdam draw and feel like it's stacked. That's pretty much my what's new is the Rotterdam draw is stacked. It almost feels like a Masters 1000 to be honest, because while they have the Dallas Open happening this week and you have some of the like top American guys and also I think Rude is playing in that one, I feel like we see Alcaraz, we see Medvedev, we see guys like Tsitsipas, even Hurkacz. It feels like these are like the really premier guys, and this is a very high level tournament. But one of the interesting things to me is that Alcaraz is the top seed in this tournament, and he's actually never won an indoor title, which was pretty surprising to me.
Whoa.
And then on the Tsitsipas front, he joined the tournament late. And I'm wondering whether this is him trying to like accumulate some points so that he has a little bit less pressure during like the clay season. Because over the next 4 months until I think the end of May, he has over 2,000 points that he has to defend. And he only has a total, I think, of 3,000 right now over the past year. So bad form could kind of spell like a disaster for him, or even not necessarily bad form, but like if he plays mediocre and only gets like 1,000 points over the next 4 months, he could drop to like the mid 20s.
Whoa, that would be crazy to see Tsitsipas in the mid 20s because at least like by the when we started this podcast, he was always a top 10 player. So it's
Yeah, pretty
crazy,
wild.
crazy. Yeah. How about bet of the week?
My bet of the week, I'm going with my old reliable Morozhan plus 125 over Struff. Realistically, this feels like a toss up. Like I feel as though these guys are pretty even. Uh, Struff is 2-0 against Morozhan on tour, but Morozhan did beat him once in 2022, I think, in a qualifier. And all their matches have been pretty close. So I do think this match could go either way. I think Morozhan is kind of trending more in the right direction. So that's one part that's kind of influencing my pick. But overall, I think it could go either way. So I'm just going with the guy with the better odds.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I haven't heard Struff's name in quite a bit. I feel like he's kind of tailing off here, which could be a little dangerous because Morojan tends to do better against,
Yeah,
higher ranked
better
players.
guys. Yeah, I don't know.
So,
Yeah, how about you?
so Alcaraz actually faces his kryptonite this week in Rotterdam, Botic van de Zandschulp, and he's plus 1,000. But
Uh,
I will not be taking that. That complete psych. He actually let me down last week with my bet of the week. So kind of a little pissed at him. So I'm going with a little parlay this week. Listen to this. So Medvedev over Wawrinka, Alcaraz over Van de Zandschulp because he fucked me over last week. And to juice it up to get the odds, a little closer to even, I threw GMP over Kovacevic, and that gets me to minus 119. I feel like the first two are, givens, and then I threw the last leg on there just like I said to juice the odds a bit. I'm a little skeptical on betting against Kovacevic so soon after the week of his life, but I feel like he's going to be a little hungover from all that success. And GMP is tough to play, especially when you have a one-handed backhand and like his quality of serve. So I feel like this will be, somewhat of a risk-free bet.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's never risk free in the betting world, but yeah, I think those first two you definitely are having the heavy favorites. And then yeah, I think GMP, if it was a straight up bet, I think I would take GMP to be honest over Kovacevic because I just think that he has that like you said, he has a great game, very strong, and Kovacevic is going to come in even if he doesn't have like a mental hangover from the long week, his body's just going to be tired.
Yeah, he played a lot of tennis, man. It was like 7 matches.
Exactly.
That's a long time.
And then for match of the week, you kind of already talked about yours, right?
Yeah, I covered mine up. I don't think there's any use in, re-explaining it. So
Yeah.
why don't you go ahead?
I went with Gasquet falling to Griekspoor in 3 sets. Really a tough one for Gasquet here, where it was a very tense match, where Gasquet had a ton of chances. It's a big tournament for him. I mean, made it through the first round, like I talked about, and his career is coming to an end. So this may be a chance for him to make a final kind of big run towards a title. And he, like I said, had a ton of chances, multiple chances to break in the first set, couldn't get it done. And then in the third, it felt like inevitable that he would break. He had a bunch of long games where Griekspoor was just defending on his serve and wasn't able to get it done. And then contrastingly, Griekspoor broke at the perfect time, like at five serving six from Gasquet. Griekspoor breaks and takes the third 7-5. And just the story of the match, like I was talking about, was Gasquet was 1 of 9 on break points, and Griekspoor was 2 of 5. So really shows that like a 40% versus like an 11% is going to make a massive difference in this match. And even when he didn't have a break point, there were a bunch of times where it went to deuce multiple times on Griekspoor's serve. Even if Gasquet didn't get a break point in those times, it's like he was so close to breaking still. But really just shows how tennis is a game of winning the critical points.
Definitely. I'm not gonna lie, there weren't a whole lot of great matches either this week, but this one was good. And I feel like Gasquet, this could have been magical because he's had a lot of success at this tournament as well. Like he's won it a few times. He's also been a finalist numerous times. So this would have been a good kind of last hurrah to go out on if he had won this, but
100%. Yeah.
falls short.
All right, and that's the show. If you're not already subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube at Painting Lines Podcast. Feel free to shoot us a DM or email us any questions or thoughts at paintinglinespodcast@gmail.com.